It's Brian Preston, the money guy.
If you don't listen to these shows live, man, this is awesome because right now there's a live chat going and folks are like, oh my gosh, I just did my number and I checked and I'm right there and I was feeling so behind, but it looks like I'm on track and I'm on pay and I've got enough saved and I'm able to retire.
This stuff is
wonderful.
powerful. This is why you want to spot check. I love our job because it's, you watch these home improvement shows and you see something that's a tear down and then within an hour show they turn it into something beautiful. This lets you guys know how much work needs to go in your renovation of your house. And for a lot of you, you're probably finding out, hey, I'm pretty spiffy still.
I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing.
Let's talk about 50-year-olds. You are the money masters, and you're now in the opportunity to build a legacy.
That's right.
So here's where we think the planning opportunities lie. You got to fine-tune that vision plan.
Yeah, so I wouldn't say that your landing gear's not down yet, but you can probably see the runway. Yeah. Like you're probably looking, and it is on. It's no longer the horizon now. You know where you're going.
Let's see if we can pack as many visual cues in here. Instead of painting with broad strokes, you're now bringing out the little tight, getting those details in there. So it's really, this is where you really, bringing back to the reality of the financial side of it, you want to probably stress test. This is when you're trying to figure out, how do you break your retirement? What does a Monte Carlo simulation look like on this? This is when you know if your dreams are coming true.
That's right.
Or if, oh my goodness, if we don't change something, we're eating cat food and potatoes.
It's so fun. There's a whole thread going on about what kind of dog food you could actually eat and survive in retirement. That's what's going on.
Is that really?
That's what's going on.
That's horrible. If you're a part of the Money Guy family, our goal is to keep you away from the Alpo. No doubt. Tune into this and you'll avoid the Alpo moments. That's what we're trying to avoid. But in all seriousness, you really do. You want to find out in your 50s that you're way off track rather than figure out at 65. Because I have, unfortunately, had those client meetings where I had a brand new client come on who they thought they were leaving work next month, and then I break the news to them, you got to work 3.5 more years.
What an awful thing to have your financial advisor say to you in like your first meeting.
Yeah, those aren't the fun meetings. It's more fun to say, guess what? It's going to be hard for you to transition from saver to spender. Go out there and spend more. We do, unfortunately, have to tell some people the bad news is your behavior doesn't match your lifestyle, so be careful with that. This is also the planning opportunity. Are you debt-free? Mm-hmm. Now, I didn't bring this up a ton. My younger people, debt, you're going to have a weird relationship. We didn't talk about it earlier for my 30 and 40-year-olds if you're one of those fire movement people. But when you're in your 50s, I think you do want to have the goal that when you approach the finish line of financial independence, whatever your date is, and some of it is going to be in the 50s for you, you probably want to be debt-free. Mm-hmm. And the reason I say is because if you look in the dictionary, independence and encumbrance are two completely different parts of the dictionary, so you need to treat your financial life the same way.
I want to speak. We have a close friend, Brian Michael, and he's out there listening right now. I know he is. So I want to put a small asterisk on there. We want you to be debt-free. Financial independence is debt-free. I want to go on the record and say that. But if you're one of those people who say, I'm never going to pay off my mortgage because there's arbitrage, yada, 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 I'm going to have money out there, you need to have the ability to be debt-free before you're financially independent.
I agree
Is
with
that fair to say?
Yeah.
If you're not going to pull the trigger and actually be debt-free, you need to be in a position where you could write a check to be debt-free.
I still will challenge. I think, now look, I get it at 50. There's still a huge opportunity for that money there's a multiplier effect on your money in your 50s. I do think once and we're not there yet because we're in the 50s, but when you get into your 60s, that multiplier effect becomes less powerful.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And I think the peace of mind that comes from being debt-free is way more powerful than the multiplier factor. And so I would probably, I'm going to let a 40-year-old go on that point. I'm going to push back a little bit on a 50-year-old. 60-year-old, without a doubt, I think you ought to be debt-free. And I can't help it. I'm getting to be that age where I'm stuck in my ways, and I'm going to tell you the way I think.
You're going to get an email.
You think so?
Oh, yeah.
We'll see. So, okay. So debt-free, we talked about that. This is also a great age to review risk.
Oh, that's so true.
Risk
so true.
is this is the point where you need to figure out, there's a reason, if you're healthy, it's still, I'm getting close to my 50s, and I still feel young.
Yeah.
I mean, I still like to run, I like to exercise, and I think there's a lot of you guys in your 50s, you're feeling the same way. This is a great time if you are blessed with great health. Go celebrate that and go buy some insurance of some type, or at least go look at it. I don't want you to go buy unnecessary insurance, but this is the age where if you're concerned about who's going to take care of you when you're older, like long-term care insurance things, this is the age to go look at those things. This is also the time just to make sure that there's not any. You're probably your last stop on life insurance. You don't want to be buying life insurance in your 60s. So if you need a 10-year policy because maybe you had children later or something like that, this is still a time you can consider doing that.
You know, we talked a little bit about like health risk and that sort of thing. It's also a good time to revisit financial risks. Even when you think about like your portfolio stuff, you know, we talk a lot in your 20s and 30s and even your 40s about risk tolerance. It really is in your 50s where the pendulum starts to shift a little bit, and it's more about risk capacity.
Yeah.
How much can you take, not much how much are you willing to take.
Because you might not have the years to recover.
That's exactly right.
You will, if you're in your 50s. By the way, we're going to talk about this in the 60s again. It's a bigger concern in the 60s, but in your 50s, you do need to start thinking about capacity because your risk tolerance, they're all interconnected.
Yep.
Your behavior, your ability to let your portfolio have the time to grow before you're pulling off those assets, all of this stuff is interconnected. And that's why if you are a CEO of a big corporation, and that's what it is, if you think about the value of your assets, you probably want somebody to help look over your shoulder and think about these things. So we talk about that. So now let's talk about, you're now getting close to financial independence. What's the next step? We did a whole show with Fritz on this from Retirement Manifesto. I love the steps he gave, so go check it out in our archives. But here's some catch you up tips is how easily will you convert from saver, because realize we got decades of experience of saving money, how easy will you convert from saver to consumer of your assets? It's hard.
You spent your whole life doing one thing, and then all of a sudden this event happens, and you have to teach yourself how to do the exact opposite of that thing.
It's weird.
It's a weird situation to be in.
Yeah, but it's a good situation, but it's still something you need to pay respect to it. Also, is this one of those things where you're going to have a wild, woolly dream of hiking the Appalachian Trail, of doing something,
going on that riverboat cruise through Europe,
buying a mountain cabin or something like that? There's all kind of things out there. And this is, you talked about, Bo, this is also a time where you do some advanced planning opportunities. What do you mean by that?
Yeah, so at 50, you're starting to think, okay, am I going to, if I am going to be a person who retires and goes into financial independence, am I going to do that at 55, 58, 60, 65? Well, if you are one of those folks, you have to start thinking, are there some other advanced planning strategies I ought to be thinking about? Whether it be like different types of retirement benefits like deferred compensation plans at work, or Roth conversion strategies to buy down your RMDs at 70, or age 55 401k withdrawal rules. There are some things you need to be thinking about and decisions you need to make in your 50s that will affect your 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, and so on.
Sure. Let's transition to roadblocks. What are the things you need to be worried about? I've already told you, and I've kind of preached on this a little bit, debt.
Yep.
I think this is the point where you're not building debt, you're hopefully winding down debt. And this ties into something you've already talked about, Bo, with taking unnecessary risk.
Yeah.
I want you guys in your 50s, I want you to really, whether it's your 20s, 30s, 40s, or 50s, try to avoid those dumb doctor type deals. Deals that are so complex you don't understand them, or somebody sells you on some product that's just not appropriate for you and builds a lot of risk when you don't need it. One of the stories I have from doing this long enough is that we knew somebody back in Georgia that just took they'd made it. They'd won. And then to help one of their children out, they did a business venture and used all of their financial independence money for that business venture for their child and lost it all.
Yep.
And it broke my heart. And look, you love your children. You want to do anything and everything for your children, but know where your limits are. Don't take unnecessary risk, especially if you've won the game. So let's talk about army of dollar bills. What should each dollar in that army of yours be doing? You still have the opportunity. You hear 50s, you're getting a little bit longer in the tooth. You're getting a little more gray in the hair. I have some of that too. Your money still can almost triple by the time you're 65. So there's still a multiplier factor there.
It's still powerful. It's still really powerful.
And there's also, you have the juice of your dollars. Because probably a lot of you in your 50s, up here in your 60s, and you're like, well, what is my money worth compared to somebody who's older than me? You still have the potential. Your money, if you compare the 2.84 divided by, over the person who's 60 and they only have the growth factor of 1.35, your money still has about 110% more power of growth opportunity than comparing yourself to your 60-year-old peers. So still some opportunities there for the 50-year-old.
So let's do the spot check, right? So we know that a 30-year-old ought to have, one time their salary, according to the Fidelity study. A 40-year-old ought to have 3 times their salary. What does Fidelity say that a 50-year-old should have to be on track?
It's a little bit bigger planet on your rocket trip.
Okay.
It's 6 times your salary.
So, again, we went a step further. If you go look at the Bureau of Labor Statistics, look at average income for Americans, the average 59-year-old, so the end of your 50s decade, right now has an annual income of $51,636. So if we take our wealth formula, age 59 times $51,636 divided by 10, your net worth at 59 should be $304,652. If you want to be average. If you want to be prodigious accumulator of wealth, so you want to be that mental financial mutant that we talk about, your net worth at 59 should be about $609,000. And if you and your wife each make $50,000, or as a couple you make $100,000 at 59, then your married net worth would be about $1.2 million.
Which doesn't surprise me. I think a lot of the research shows that when you're in your 50s is probably when a lot of people cross into that 7-figure period. So
That's right.
A lot of opportunity. The big takeaway for 50-year-olds is you have a lot of opportunity to fine-tune your vision and make sure you have that landing into retirement is everything you dreamed by making sure the plan matches the thoughts.
That's right.